yourself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the...
Welcome to NUFC Matters. I'm delighted to see I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Ruel Fox. How are you, Ruel?
I'm not too bad, pal. Yourself?
Really good, mate. And good to have you back on the show, albeit you've never actually been on the YouTube version. We did one of the very pioneering ones on Instagram back in the day. I think you were lying on the grass in the garden, I think, when we did
it. Yeah, that's about as far out of the house I could get at that time. No, it's nice now. So it's nice to actually get out some fresh air and get back to work. So, yeah, mental health is better. Everyone seems to be getting out. It's a bit of a smile on people's faces. So it's nice to get back to some sort of normality. You know, everyone's having to adapt like yourself. We're having to go online and have these conversations. But if it helps the wider public, you know what I mean, then I'm all for these things.
No, great stuff, mate. Great to have you on. As always, we've got questions from the fans. But let's just talk a little bit about your early career, Ruel. First of all, you started down in Norwich, didn't you?
Yeah, started at Norwich from a schoolboy. I was there from the age of 14. I'm originally from Ipswich, so had trials at Ipswich maybe 2 or 3 times. They couldn't quite make their mind up whether they wanted to sign me or not. And luckily at that time I had a friend who lived across the road who was signed on professional forms for Norwich. So I kept knocking on his door and telling him to take me down there for a day's trial. He took me down there, and within a day they signed me straight up. So that's where my career started. So from the age of 14 till I came to Newcastle, I was playing at Norwich.
Did you always play in the same position in your early days?
Strangely enough, both times I went for trials, I went for as a centre midfield player. But obviously, as you know, as all the fans know, I'm not that tall. So it went against me. By the time I got to the professional setup, I was all right in the amateur teams, but once it came to professional setup, they thought I was a little bit lightweight to be in the middle. So I got moved out to the right. And that's where I ended up staying. I ended up staying in the right midfield.
What was it like making your pro debut after, cutting your teeth at the lower levels?
It was quite exciting, actually, because the difference was around them times, the clubs always look for youth, and usually depends how well you were doing in your youth, because it was youth team till you got round to 18, then you went to the senior setup, so you probably play maybe a year or so in reserve football to get 1 or 2 games. I was quite fortunate. By the time I got to 17, I'd signed a professional contract, and then I got a call up for the first team, because generally what happens, if a team's, say, in the middle of the table, there's nothing to play for, they blooded a few of the youngsters who were doing well. So me and maybe 3 other, just myself, and 2 reserve players got a run out in the first team in one of the cup games. So it was really exciting for me. The game went quite well, because it was lucky for me that the player I played against Coventry, and the player I was playing against was one of the old players from Norwich, but he was a little bit, I'd say, on the retirement side. So it made my job slightly easy that I was a 70-year-old whippersnapper playing against a 30-year-old who probably couldn't keep up with me.
Brilliant stuff. Full Members Cup, I think it was called, wasn't it? Back in those days. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. And you made your league debut, was that right, against Oxford?
Yeah, then it was Oxford after that.
Did you find it much of a step up, Ruel?
To be honest with you, because of my upbringing and the way I was brought up, I'd always, again, harken back to youth football. When I was playing youth football, whether it had been in amateur football or playing in professional league, my amateur football stood me a good stead for when I was in professional, because I always played above my level. So when I was playing, say, 13, 14, 15, I was playing a year or 2 above. So they weren't afraid to push you, and if I felt you had the ability, it was a way of them making you man up. So by the time I got to the youth setup at Norwich, it was quite, I would say, quite easy for me, because I'd already had that stature and the experience of playing against older people. So when I actually got to the first team, I'd already been training with the first team squad from around the age of 17. So to then step into the first team, obviously it's a little bit intimidating, because obviously you're playing in front of large crowds. But playing wise, they encourage you to enjoy your football and express yourself. So it was a case where I was allowed to just play my game.
I mean, once you established yourself in the team, Norwich were on the up when you were there. And I think people tend to forget that Norwich had a really good spell in the 90s. And I think it was the 92-93 campaign where Norwich were leading the way for best part of the season, but then slipped away just towards the end into third place. I mean, what was it like to be in a team at that time challenging for the league?
Yeah, it was strange because don't forget, I think that was it was either the year before or that year that they launched the actual Premier League, and that was all the glitz and the glamour with the Sky Sports cameras coming in. You had the dancers on the pitch, it was fireworks and all that. So it was like a movie set. So for us, we just took it in our stride. It was just obviously, it's like when your expectation is just to survive in a league. So we were just going out and playing every game as just to enjoy it. And then we found ourselves probably halfway through the season and we were top of the league. And then I think then reality kicked in. We said, do you know what, guys, we could actually win this. And I think obviously with a smaller squad, no disrespect, the quality was there, but not to that standard where we knew how to maybe take the team over the line. And then eventually we got caught up just after Christmas by Man United.
It's interesting because I'd forgotten about that before I started researching for talking to you today. And in a lot of similarities towards Newcastle's title collapse, a few years later when, they had that 13-point lead at Christmas. Obviously, it was a 12-point lead that a lot of people talk about against Man United, and then Man United pipped them for the league. Do you think there's a lot to be said for teams in that kind of experience where it's the experience of winning that maybe gets those teams behind through? Newcastle and Norwich hadn't, had the experience of winning the Premier League. And, do you think that counted against them?
Definitely. I think when you're in an unstrange environment like that and, you go along, you enjoy your games, you're getting all the plaudits from not just your fans, from other teams and other pundits and commentators. So you just go along with the ride. But I think the main part of it is how to manage games, because don't forget, that's why I probably hit the ground running with Newcastle. We played exactly the same football. There was no fear. We were just all about all attack. We're the same as when I went to Newcastle. We was winning games 4-3. We were sometimes 2-3-0 down and coming back and winning the game 4-3 because we just treated it like it was just about expressing ourselves. But what at the time there weren't a lot of managers who had that kind of management style where they would say, do you know what? Once we get that lead, we need to sit back and maybe take off one attacking player and have a holding player. It's more tactically aware nowadays, and I think the time another similar team would have been Leicester, but they managed to get over the line because they had the right clientele in the right positions on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, you played with former Newcastle player Gary Megson, I think was it Norwich? Was he at the time?
Yeah, we had Gary Megson. He was one of the senior guys. Brian Gunny goal. We had what's good. Chrissy Sutton was just starting to establish himself. So he was banging in goals before he left. We had a mixture of players who had probably on their, I would say, second chance kind of thing that we'd bought from other clubs. So they had quite a bit to prove. But then also we still had a good balance of quality players. We had this good connection with Tottenham. So we had quite a few of the Tottenham players who probably couldn't get into the first team. We had Ian Crook, Ian Culverhouse, excuse me, Gary Brook was there. So we had a few of the Tottenham players who were technically good, mixed in with what we had from our academy and our first team. So it gelled well for us.
Yeah, I think I always remember Jeremy Goss from that team for some reason. And Efan Akuku as well, he was there.
Yeah. Again, like I said, the difference is when you're bringing in players with that quality and background, there's no what we call big time players. I remember Norwich was always a family run small club, so they were quite good at recruiting players who understood that. So it was no good us then trying to pay for a £5 million player or £10 million player, which is the value of the players at the time, and then trying to blend that in. It's very difficult to you have to get the right type of player when you've got a club run out a certain way.
Yeah, following season wasn't as great in the league, but you did have a great run in the UEFA Cup, didn't you? Which, of course, came to an end in the last 16 against Inter Milan, I think it was. But that must have been great as well, just that period of, European football as well.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things. We just managed to hold on to the third place, which qualifies for Europe. So for us, again, we just went at it the same way. I mean, the most important thing for us, which was quite strange at the time, don't forget, the money wasn't as it was when the Premiership first started. So for us, we used to have the senior lads used to go in every beginning of every season. They'll sit down with the players first, and you'd kind of negotiate back and forth with the chairman or the secretary of the club of what bonuses you got. So our bonus run for winning league games and winning European games was probably more than our wages. So for us, every time we won a game, so like we won one game, then 2 games, 3 games, 4 games in a row, we'd probably end up doubling our wages just on our bonuses. So for us, we always were thinking to ourselves, God, if we get through to the next round, you know, this is going to be how much money we're going to be earning. But we never actually looked at the team and took the teams that serious. Even, it might sound strange, even when we got to Bayern Munich, we looked at it, we just thought, you know what, we're here, let's just enjoy it. Yeah. Which was quite strange, but it worked out well for us.
Yeah, fantastic. So obviously after the success at Norwich that you had and you know, establishing yourself as a Premier League player, Newcastle came calling in '94. How did the deal come about?
It was quite strange because I in them times, don't forget, we didn't have all these social media things. So generally it was either in one of the tabloids, or you would probably the agents were around at the time, but they weren't as many about. They only were there with the top players. So when you heard some football news, it was generally just a rumor. I'd heard that Arsenal were looking at me, and I didn't know nothing about Newcastle. I travelled into training one day, as usual, just came in to do my training. The chairman phoned me up and said to me, I need to come and speak to you. From all I heard from newspaper, I thought it might be Arsenal or another club. He didn't mention nothing about Arsenal. He just said to me, look, we've had a bid from Newcastle. The usual stuff they say, they don't want you to go, but they're still telling you that someone's interested in you. So with that, I said, well, if you're telling me that a club's interested, that means that you're open to me going. He then said to me, no, the chairman at the time said, no. Want you to go up there and have a look. If you don't like it, you can come back. No one's going to know about it. It's going to keep between us. So I thought, you know what? I'm an ambitious person. I'd like to go try. So he gave Kevin Keegan my number. He phoned me up, and as you know, he's probably one of the best salesmen in football. He spoke to me. He said, "Look, just said the same thing. Come up, have a chat. Nothing's been done yet. We just want you to have a look around and decide whether you want to sign." So I turned my car around, went to the airport, flew over. When I got to the airport at Gosford, there was all fans there already at the airport. Probably about 300 fans at the airport. So straight away, I thought, well, this hasn't been a secret then. And obviously found out that Norwich had told the Newcastle press that I turned down a contract and then I was going up to sign with Newcastle, which is a bit disappointing because that's not what we agreed. But after sitting down, speaking to Kevin Keegan, I mean, he sold the club to me. It wasn't just the fact that I played recently against Newcastle and the conversation Kevin said to me, said that he asked John Beresford who was one of his most difficult opponents that he's played against, and he mentioned myself. So Keegan was like that. He'd ask the players who do they actually rate as a player. So that when he was talking to me about that, he said, "Look, we want you to come here. This is a team we're building. Obviously, Andy Cole just signed. I read about that he was finding it hard to settle. He explained to me that it was a mistake, that they'd rectified it. He was now in the right areas and he was enjoying his football. And then also the other thing he sold it to me is at that time there wasn't many successful black players who had played at Newcastle. So for me, that sold it to me as much as the club, the fan base, and everything else, because as we all know, it's a touchy subject, but Newcastle was one of the places, a bit like everywhere else in the Northeast. Black players found it hard to go there. They found it hard to play against teams like that because there was a lot of racism. Yeah. So for me, it was not just a football, but it was also, to do something and change people's mindset. So that was probably one of the biggest reason, plus the football reason, why I decided to sign.
You certainly did that, and a fee of about 2.75 million or two and a half
Yeah.
million, whatever it was paid. And Kevin Keegan described you as the best player in his position in the country. Did that give you a bit of extra pressure, Ruel?
Yeah, well, it gives you a pressure, but also it's a bit of a confidence booster when you, because obviously it's quite obvious the manager's not going to say anything negative if he wants to sign you, but he was great at that. He was great at making you feel that you was the best around. So I've just had that transition from Norwich where they used to do exactly the same thing under Mike Walker. He would just let you express yourself. You know, he would encourage you to carry on playing, even when you weren't playing well. He kept to the ethos and the way we wanted to play. And Keegan was exactly the same. So it wasn't a massive surprise, but it was a great compliment.
We often hear from, a lot of the ex-players on the after-dinner circuit up here about the initiation when players came in, and, John Beresford tells a story about them pinging a ball towards David Ginola later, in a few years later, and he just took it on his instep, and, Scott Sellers shrugged his shoulders and said, "That's me gone." It's a story that gets repeated many a time. Did you have a bit of an initiation with the lads? Did you settle in well straight away?
Yeah, luckily, I think they assigned the local boys to look after me. So my initiation was going to the big market. So mine was totally different. Don't forget, I had Lee Clark, didn't I? You know what I mean? I had all the boys, I had all the local boys. So I had Robbie Elliott, Steve Watson. So they were assigned to look after me. So with that, I settled in quite quickly, and the football side of it was so good. I mean, with Keegan, it was all about five-a-sides, nothing. There was no tactics too much. So the settling period was quite instant for me.
Yeah, and I mean, the social side's good as well, Ruel.
Yeah, no, that's undoubt. I mean, the good thing about it as well, and people forget about this. When we talk about what is missing out the game now, that is what's missing out the game. The contact between the players and the fans. And Key he initiated it most times. People thought that we were just going out, after games or whatever. No, Key was the one who told us we have to go out. We used to get fined for not having a social. So it was great. It was clever because it was a great way of bonding us, because at that time we started to get, your Philip Albert's, your Hottingers, we was getting foreign players in. So it was important that they understood about the club, about the environment they were coming into. So, for things like that, it was really important. But at the time, it was important in the right way.
Yeah, I mean, a team that socialises off the pitch tends to play well on it, and that was certainly the case with Keegan's entertainers. I mean, the birth of the entertainers had happened the previous season. Newcastle had promoted to win the title with style. They beat Leicester 7-1. Andy Cole signs. You come in. Did you feel like it was the beginning of something special?
Yeah, most definitely. It had the no disrespect to Norwich, but it had the same feel as Norwich. But remember, I said to at Norwich where we didn't quite have the reason why. I think the club moved players on, and I left and Chris Sutton left, the high established player. It's because we knew that Norwich were at a stage where they couldn't invest anymore. They had a certain way of running the club like a business, and they weren't the sort of club who would then go be spending millions on, either people like your Andy Coles. Norwich wouldn't be doing stuff like that. So when I went to Norwich, from day one, and I was around the players from the first week being there, I kind of knew the quality had stepped up slightly. There was quality players, and there was probably we had players who could fill other areas. So the squad size was so much better.
What was your first memory of stepping foot onto St James's Park?
The fans, the noise. I was kind of warned about it. They were saying to me, "Look, once you get to that ground, once the build up from the ground, I can remember, coming to the stadium, that was the start of it. But then once you go and warm up, the noise was unbelievable. And the fan, we talk about 12th men, and I think people over exaggerate it at certain clubs, but this is definitely a club that's got 12th, 13th, and a 14th man. So it was definitely the fans.
What was your debut? I can't remember.
I can't remember my debut myself.
I remember you playing. I think it was. I mean, you signed February '94. I remember you playing a game against Swindon. I think Newcastle won 7-1, and I remember.
Yeah, I got my first goal then, but I think I travelled. This is how Keegan makes me laugh. I think I travelled with the team. I think we was in a cup game. I think it was either Luton
Yeah.
Hartson scored against either Luton or something, and I weren't eligible to play then, so he brought me along. Obviously just to bond with the players, and I think we lost that game. I think we lost the game, and he come in after the game, and straight away he says, "Do you know what? I've just signed Ruel Fox here. I've signed him to improve the team, but I won't be surprised if he just turns around and goes back to Norwich." And he said, "If you want to," he said in front of Leicester, "if you want to go, just tell me now. You can go back, because this is not what Newcastle are about." And then I think the game after, I can't remember what the game after, it might have been the Swindon game, and then from there it was just joy all the time, and the fun about it, the quality, the notes. I think we obviously got Rob Lee, who was playing ironically on the right. So I think Keegan made another astute decision by saying, "No, I want him to play centre midfield," and the reason he brought me there is to release Rob to play in the middle. So the team we had was very strong.
Bit of a good luck talisman, Ruel, really, when you look at your story, because you came in February and by the end of the season, Newcastle finished in 3rd place and qualified for the UEFA Cup for the first time in a long time.
I know, I was becoming a bit of a lucky charm, twice in 2 seasons. So yeah, I mean, again, like you said, we only just got promoted. So, it's like the expectation for the Newcastle fans, they just want to see great entertainment football, but to actually be in the position we were to qualify for Europe, it's just an added bonus for us.
I think a big talking point of the following season was the sale of Andy Cole. Did that come as a surprise to you?
Yeah, it did. It did in a way, because again, it had the kind of feel again of when I was at Norwich. We just got ourselves established. It's my first thing. Don't forget, I think I was part of the. Andy got the record goal scoring that season as well. So I had a good friendship with Andy as well, because Andy just lived around the corner from me. So, we used to go out for meals together because we was up there on our own. So I had a good connection and bond with Andy. So, on the pitch, it was, we knew where each other was going to be, and I knew where he's going to be. And playing with Peter Beardsley as well, and Scott Sellers on the other side, things were moving forward. We was adding additions. We had Peacock, didn't we? Philip Albert, Hottinger. So I expected us to just, add a few more players to it. So then the following season, when you're hearing, rumours about Andy, it came quite quick. Actually, I don't think there's actually too many rumours. It happened really quickly. And you got to understand also, it's not just a football club. You go, Andy's there. When Man United come calling, it's one of them things. Then you either say to him, stay for one more season, which maybe might have been negotiable. Stay for one more season until we get a good enough replacement, or you just cash in and then take from there. So I think that kind of knocked all the players' confidence there, because it also gave a suggestion that maybe we didn't want to be where we were.
Yeah, I mean, it was still a good season. I mean, we would love a season like that now, finishing 6th place. Obviously, didn't qualify for Europe, and because of the high positioning and qualifying for Europe the previous season, I guess it felt like a bit of a disappointment. And fans were whispering rather than shouting that the sale of Cole had played its big part in that. But again, a decent season for you personally with double figures.
Yeah. Like I said to you, I was feeling at home. I was scoring goals, assisting goals. I think I had one of the highest assists in the league, and I was obviously, I think I scored around 12, 13 goals that season. So everything was, like I said to you, everything was going fine. Obviously next season losing Andy was a big wrench for us, because I think did we bring Paul Kitson in as well?
Yeah.
And it was a bit harsh for Paul, because again, like I said, every player doesn't hit the ground running. I think for Paul, it wasn't just coming in and establish yourself. You're replacing our top goal scorer. Yeah. So it was a hard ask for him, he done well, he tried his best, but it's a hard thing to say, you're going to replace our top goal scorer. So it was always going to be a difficult period for us.
Yeah, we also had that situation, of course, where, the reserves were scrapped. So the likes of Paul Kitson didn't actually have an opportunity to play any football whatsoever. Keegan having a fallout with the groundsman over the pitch. But your days at Newcastle were numbered. The following season, of course, there was more signings made, and you were deemed surplus to requirements. How did you feel about that?
It was a mixture, because, like I said, I've just come off a good season. Again, it was one of them things, but this time, obviously, I kind of heard that they were interested in me, but it never really, because Keegan was one of the people that you could go and speak to. You go and knock on his door. You have a chat with him because he was great at that. He would ask you in his office just to talk about football things. You know, he loved his football, so he would give me challenges. He would say to me, "Look, I want you to do this next season. You know, anything I needed, you know, improve on my left side and that." He was always there to help. So our relationship was brilliant. It was just when it got to that situation, I'd rather he was up in front and honest because Andy had already gone. So it just got to a stage where I thought, well, obviously I knew Keith was part of that transfer. Keith's a great player. So for me, it was about, I never felt intimidated by Keith being there or David being there because I believed in my own ability from the season before. It was just a case where I had that, it was always that inkling again that, hold on a minute, he's now told me about Tottenham being interested. I didn't ask to leave. I haven't suggested I wanted to leave. You know, I wasn't saying I was homesick or anything like that. So for him to come to me with that, it knocked me a bit. And so I had the conversation with him. I said, well, do you want me to go? And he says, well, no, you know, his remarks were, no, I don't want you to go. But at the same time, we're not going to offer you a new contract. But it wasn't a problem again because I still had probably year and a half, 2 years to go. But then after that, you know, the games went in. I played one game, came out, played another game, came out. And then these rumours started to hotter up with Tottenham. Then, so I went back to see him and I said, well, what's it going to be? We either put this to bed and say, no, you know, you don't want me there. You don't want me to leave to go to Tottenham. Or these rumours are going to keep carrying on. And it's not good for me because if I'm hearing this and then, you know, I'm not getting in the team, I'm not getting no reassurance I'm going to be playing, then obviously I'm going to go elsewhere. And he never gave me that reassurance. So I just said, well, okay, then. Well, if you're not giving reassurance, then I might as well go talk to Tottenham, see what they've got to say. So that's how it happened so quickly. You know, very disappointing. But, you know, you start to learn that's the way football is at times.
Sad, yep, sad, very sad. And a lot of Newcastle fans were disappointed to see you leave, but thankful for, you know, for the year's service, that you gave us, and some great games, some great memories. You ended up at Tottenham, as you say, roughly £4.5 million transfer fee. You know, what was it like at Tottenham for you?
Tottenham, again, for me, I'm looking at teams and where I started and where I ended up, and I was looking at a step up every time. So the Tottenham situation, even though I was leaving a fantastic club and, you know, I loved everything about Newcastle, when you look at the Tottenham team, you know, Tottenham a bit more established team. We still got the same quality players. We had Darren Anton, Terry Sheringham, Sol Campbell. So like for like players, we had a good team, you know. So for that, you know, that's why it made my mind up to say, well, I'm not actually having a step down. I'm actually going to a club that's still going to be challenging. And when I got there, it was more, it's a bit of a culture shock because I've gone from, you know, being at Norwich and the type of football we're playing and the training and everything like that. And when I got to Tottenham, the facilities weren't quite the same. We was training in an old school. So it was always, you know, where at least we had Durham to train at, where the surface was nice, even though we had used other facilities. You know, where we trained was a good quality place to train. So I had that for the year. But the main thing for me was what we say, the camaraderie between the team and the players. Once I got to London, you then realise that everyone lives all over the place. You don't actually get that team bonding. You know, where I've been at two clubs where it was important to bond with the players. When I got to Tottenham, it was all about, well, here you are. This is your price tag. Let's just go out and do it. You know, there weren't no bonding with players, and, you know, people went out, but it was more, I don't know, because it was London, there was people living in one side of London. So as soon as training done, everyone was just gone. You know, and that's not the way I am as a person. I like to get to know people because you've got to get to know your teammates. But we still had a decent season getting on with each other. But them sort of things start to show its head after a while, because after a while, you know, when you got that team spirit, that gets you over the line sometimes, because you've got to be allowed to tell a player that he's not doing the right things he should be doing. And I've got to accept criticism of other players as well. But it comes across different if you don't quite know that player. And they don't, you know, you don't know them off the park, you know, but you only know them on the park. So you get this perception that they're a little bit arrogant or bits and pieces like that. So it was a mixture of highs and lows, I would say, at Tottenham.
obviously you did move on. I mean, got to the 1999 Football League Cup final. You made 3 appearances, I think, in the run-up, but you didn't get a chance to to play in the final. I mean, I presume that must have felt a bit disappointing.
Yeah, I mean that's probably one of my biggest disappointments because I played every game. Played the semi-final, played every game, and then the final came along, and I wasn't even on the subs bench. You're still disappointed to be on the subs bench. It's everyone's dream. Like everyone says, you only get a few opportunities to win cups and win trophies. For me, it had to be my first ever time of being at Wembley, first time being involved in the atmosphere. And even though he tried, I think it was George Graham. Was it George Graham? George Graham.
Yeah.
And even though I knew as soon as George Graham came that, I weren't quite his type of player. But also he still played me, which was quite strange. But then when it came to the final, maybe it was down to trust. I don't know. He's got a certain way of playing. He didn't like too many what we called attacking players. But then, it was disappointing because I'm in the pictures and holding the trophy. But it was a bit, they said to me they gave me one of the medals, but I gave it away because it wasn't that it was a sour taste for me because after playing in all them games and not actually even getting on a bench, that it was probably one of my lowest points, I would say.
Yeah,
even though the team won, it's hard to put the smile on your face and smile with the teammates, which you do, but away from it, you're kind of thinking, well, that was probably a bit of a low point.
Yeah. You moved to West Brom, which is where you finished your career. I mean, for me, it sounds very much like it's almost you fell out of love with football route to a degree. After having a great start with Norwich and continuing that at Newcastle, it really sounds as if Tottenham and then West Brom were, felt as if you were on a decline and you just walked away. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I was very fortunate. I mean, financially, I was okay. I'm not a sort of flash person, but I was comfortable. And Tottenham were trying to get me out the door. I still had a few years left of my contract. I wanted to stay, and it's same scenario again. They wanted to get rid of me because they want to get money in. I dug my heels in because I was sick of getting told to leave clubs all the time. So I stayed there for as long as I can. And in the end, they said to me, look, we'll pay your contract up, but but you need to go, So again, I've never had agents. I had a brief agent at Newcastle, and Keegan kicked him out the door when he turned up because apparently he'd done a dodgy deal with one of the players previously. So from there, I didn't really have a relationship with agents or anything. So I didn't have anyone who could go around to speak to clubs. I just didn't believe in agents. You know what I mean? I just believed that, well, if someone's interested, they'll come for you anyway. So I knew Gary Megson from my Norwich days. So he phoned me up. Again, he told me, I already said to him, like I said earlier, I was thinking I was just going to retire. I was thinking, you know what I mean? I was only 32, though, 32, coming 33. I know it might be early for me. I was thinking, do you know what? I'm going to probably just go home, might be play for my local club, lower division, get a couple of years there, and that was it. So I'd already come back, and then Gary Megson had phoned up, and he asked me to come to West Brom. And I thought, oh, do you know what? I'm back home. I'm going to have to start travelling again and all that. But he convinced me, him being a mate of mine, I said, look, I'll go up there. I'll give it a season if I like it and all that. And then when I got there, I got a little bit of a kickstart again because I was being given the important role of being a senior player. So all he wanted me to do was get the ball. I was actually, this is how funny it is. It goes around in a circle. I actually started playing centre midfield. So from being on trial when I was 14 to being a centre midfield player, it's now gone around about, and I'm now at the end of my career playing centre midfield. So I was just getting the ball, being a ball player, and passing ball through, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, it was different type of football because don't forget, it's the first time I ever played in the lower division in the Championship. But I felt I had time, my experience, and know-how. We had Jason Roberts and Lee Hughes up front who were phenomenal goal scorers. So my job was quite easy. I played just behind them and was just passing balls through to them. So the season was great for us. We got promoted. I was captain. So for me, I just felt, you know what? I'm not going to get a better hide in this. So I just thought, instead of me slugging it out, and I could see my legs were going a little bit also. So it was probably the sensible thing just to retire.
Yeah. Great career, though, and one with a lot of memories. We'll take a few questions now from people on Twitter and Facebook. Life Goals, he says, you were such a live wire at Newcastle and Norwich, but you didn't quite seem the same player at Spurs. In hindsight, do you think they were wrong? They were the wrong club to progress your talent?
Yeah. Like we explained earlier, it was just one of those things that on paper, the club, the squad, everything, they all tick the right boxes. We had a fantastic team. We played good football, but I think there was just disruptions all the time. I think I went through 3 managers while I was there. I think we had Chrissy Houghton took over at one time. We had Christian Gross. We had George Graham. We had Jerry Francis. That's 4 managers. You know what I mean? In that space of time I'm there, and don't forget, every time a manager comes in, they were under that much pressure. I think one time we was floating on relegation like Newcastle were. We was in the bottom 4, bottom 5. So for any manager coming in, you know what it's like. They get defensive, so they're not going to be playing with attackers. So for me, there was good times. Don't forget, again, my first 2 seasons there, I think I was double figures. So both seasons, so that weren't like the football was bad. It was just after them seasons, I think Jerry getting a sack, and then it all just started going up and down for the club all the time. And I think trying to get yourself in a run of games and get your quality players in the team and play consistently, then it was always going to be difficult with the expectations of the football club. So I think that's why when I said to you, I had high and low points, and I think that description was right. It was a case where you sometimes make these moves and they don't work out as the way you want them to.
King Stokesy on Twitter says, who was the fastest, you or Andy Cole?
Coley was the slowest in training, but the quickest on the pitch, put that way. I think I was quicker than him over. It was probably me and Bez. Bez was quite quick. So it's me and Bez. I mean, Mark Hottinger was quick. Andy Cole he showed his pace in the last third. I think he stride, but I mean, off the mark, I was probably a little bit quick, but over a distance, I think Andy would probably catch me.
Craig on Twitter asks, who was your favourite player growing up?
It was a mixture, I think. Growing up, I used to love West Bromwich Albion. So my players were Cyril Regis, Laurie Cunningham. It was mostly the black players. Brendan Batson was playing. And then as I was getting older, I mean, when I was trying to get into the first team, and you could see players, I think at the time, Mark Walters had gone from Aston Villa to Rangers. John Barnes had gone from Watford to Liverpool, and with all the racism and all that, they became role models for me a little while, because I looked up to them because they played the same position. So yeah, I would say Cyril Regis when I was at West Brom, and then it turned to Mark Walters and Barnes.
David Jones asks a bizarre question. He says, is it true that Mike Hooper used to have a full English breakfast every morning with double everything 7 days a week?
Yeah. I'll say treble. He liked his breakfast, old Hoops. Yeah, I mean, don't forget at the time there was no. You got to think about when we were travelling for games, there was no dietitian.
Yeah.
I mean, Terry McDermott was our dietitian. That tells you all of it. So
the weather be realer.
Yeah. We used to go on the coach at Durham, and we just stopped at the nearest garage, and he'd just pile on sandwiches and pastas and everything like that. So, for diets and keeping healthy, I mean, don't forget, we had the kitchen up Durham, and at the club we provided nice food, but there wasn't any measuring down of portion sizes. You just allowed to eat as much as you like.
Yeah, no nutrition at all. Andy Hodgson says, I had a Green McEwen's third kit stolen off my line, and it had Fox number 5 on the back. Has Ruel seen it?
I've got one actually, but I don't think it's his. I've actually got the warm-up one. I like that kit actually. We had the warm-up one. There were some kits that they brought which I quite like. The blue retro one was a bit loud, but we always done well playing in that, and the blue one as well. So yeah, no, I don't think I've anything to do with that kit, by the way.
Good stuff. Raymondo wants to know why you chose to wear number 5.
That was the only thing that was available. I mean, Rob Lee, don't forget, I'd come from Norwich I was wearing, but I hadn't kind of stamped down on a number up to the end, because when the Premiership started, they gave out the squad numbers, and I think even when I first got to Norwich team, I started off number 14, then I was number 10, and then it's only when I come to Newcastle I want to be. I was number 7, sorry, at Norwich just before I left, and then when it got there, Rob already had number 7. And there's no way Rob was going to get there at 7. So he went for the squad numbers, and the only one that was in the starting 11 number that was spare was number 5. So I just thought, well, instead of me being number 16 or whatever again, I'll go with 5. So it was just a choice of mine. Nothing. There was no significance behind it.
Pete Davey, who was a regular on the show, he did ask if you felt that you needed to leave, or were you asked to leave when Ginola arrived. We covered that earlier, but he has got 2 other questions. He says, what was the kit that he enjoyed playing in the most?
The black and white kit. The black and
right.
white kit. It's a strong kit, isn't it? It's strong, and it's got the stripes in, so it reminds me of West Brom. But it was just something about it when you put it on. When you put the kit on, it's just them bold colours, and especially the Asics one. I like the Asics one. Didn't like the Adidas too much. Didn't like the Adidas, but the Asics, I like wearing the Asics one.
And this is a question which I can gather, I know what you're going to answer, but I think you'd have a different answer if you were doing a Q&A with the Norwich podcast. Was playing for Newcastle the most enjoyable time of your career?
I mean, it's difficult to answer, because on par, remember we was going through my story, they both were so similar. Got to Europe, played good football, got into the top 5. So there was no difference. I mean, obviously Norwich are going to be dear to my heart, because they're the ones who gave me my chance in football from playing in the streets of in Ipswich. They're the ones who plucked me from the street and gave me a debut. So I'd say Norwich on them terms, but there's not much between it.
Okay, I am Neil Marshall. He says, where did you go for nights out in Newcastle, and how did it compare to Norwich's nightlife?
Oh, no, this is different kettle of fish now. Newcastle's nights out were so much better. I mean, well, as you know, Steve, we went everywhere. That's the good thing about it. There was no.
Uno's was a popular one with the entertainers, wasn't it? But you went there for your food and a glass of wine.
There was always Uno's first, to line your stomach, just to get a bit of pasta in there and a bit of bread. Then it was. Then we used to go. I mean, nightclub wise, we always went to Julie's, because that was the only place there, weren't it? Yeah. So I can't remember what Martha's. We used to go to Martha's. So it was always we didn't really venture out too many times. It was only when Clarkey and Watto and that started getting involved in it that we started going to the big market, because at the time we stayed in the quayside a lot of the times then, but then obviously we got introduced to the big market, and the atmosphere there's so good. Obviously you got your Chinatown there for the food and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, social wise and for the people and the drinking and that, Newcastle wins it hands down.
Yeah, great stuff, great memories. Facebook questions. Corey Nicholson says, favourite goal that you scored for Newcastle?
I scored, not very big. I quite enjoyed quite a few. I think I scored one against Wimbledon. I think that's when I think Keith came into the team, and I ended up playing on the left. And I think I dribbled from him, came in from the left, and hit one in the top corner. I scored one against my hometown, Ipswich, again for about 25 yards. Them 2 were my favourite. But when it becomes important, I think I scored our first European goal, weren't it, against Atletico?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Even though it was a toe poke, was the importance of it. So yeah, I'll say them 3 goals.
Okay, Glenn Skingsley says, which manager would be your choice to take over from Steve Bruce, or would you stick with him?
What managers are out there apart from Rafa if he comes back? But do you know what? For my liking, it's not so much the manager as the people in charge. It's the managers. The managers can only deal with what they got to deal with, and you know what it's like now. Managers are now involved, and we don't know who's buying the players, who's scouting the players. We don't. When we was there, we knew that Keegan, Terry McDermott, Arthur Cox, they all were looking at players. It would be on their recommendation that they bring a players in. So Steve Bruce's hands have been tied to a certain extent. I know latter stage he might have involvement in bringing Willock in, but I'm not too sure. But then, like you said to you, if you haven't got the resources to bring people in, then it doesn't matter what manager bring because their hands are going to be tied. So I haven't really. Plus, he's a friend of mine anyway, so I'm not going to go in hard on him. But I'd say there's no manager that I can think of at the moment could work in that environment with the budget and the owners that he's got.
Yeah, I 100% agree, mate. I think that is the problem. It's the ownership that needs to change, and if the manager changes after that, then so be it. But it'll be interesting. It's an interesting summer coming up for Newcastle fans once
Most
again.
definitely.
Mark Henderson says, which position did you most prefer to play in?
I enjoy playing on the right. I enjoy playing on the left, which I did for Newcastle. I enjoyed the way the sisters play now. I probably enjoy being that little number 10 behind the two strikers because I can get about the pitch and find little pockets and space. So I enjoy any place where I've got to attack and not run back too much.
Okay. Edward Farm says, what's your favourite memory from Newcastle? On or off the pitch, I suppose.
Off the pitch is the way I was accepted. Because like you said, I was a little bit nervous about, what area I'm going to live in, the culture and the place and all that. But they were brilliant. They quickly accepted who I was, accepted my family. My children were going to the school there. So it was strange for my children. It was probably strange for the people of Newcastle, for different cultures. But, that was probably my most enjoyable bit was feeling welcome. What other place can you go to and have the welcome that they gave us and the love and the affection that they give me? So they'll always be close to my heart. It's always a place that, as you know, see for yourself, anytime I get a chance to go up, I'm straight up.
Danny Bain says, who was the toughest defender that you faced?
For obvious reasons, Stuart Pearce. My position is one of them funny positions because I'm there to take on players and generally in them days and all that, they usually had players in there who were there to stop players in any way they could. So I didn't have nice left backs. I had Julian Dix, you know what I mean? That's Stuart Pearce playing. There's Van der Haan playing at Tottenham. So there weren't the most difficult one I would say who weren't that intimidating, but I found it hard to. Because Dennis Irwin, probably the most underrated player. I don't think he's not underrated around Manchester and all that, but not a lot of people talk about him as a complete fullback. But he could play left. He was 2-footed, but he never really sold himself. My job is to take on defenders and embarrass him. But majority of the time, I found it right difficult playing against him.
Yeah, good players, a whole host of decent players you've named there who would certainly give you a bit of a run for your money. Tom Dixon says, when you did hang your football boots up, did you miss playing?
No, because I think, at that time, I think most players will tell you that as soon as they retire, it's almost like a release because you're like a machine. You're doing the same things every day, and then you go through the same emotions all the time. If you're not playing, you're upset because you train all week to play in the first team or be involved in the squad. And when you're not in the squad, it's an emotional roller coaster. So when you first stop, it's almost like it's almost like a bit of relief. But then after that relief, then reality kicks in that you need to find something to do. So that for me, the retiring wasn't a bad thing. But then after about 2 years of being retired, then reality kicks in because you do miss the normality of being around. I think it's the camaraderie of being around the players and having that day-to-day banter. It's not so much the playing; it's just being around. It's like a family. It's like being in the army. When you see with people in the army now, when they come out, they struggle with their mental health. It's the same thing with football.
Who was the best player that you played with at Newcastle, Ruel?
Peter Beardsley, hands down. Peter Beardsley, again, a player that he's such a great player. He's held in high esteem, by all fans and players and everyone. But he's so humble and modest. He plays the game. He's unselfish. If he sees you playing, he helped me. He helped me a lot when I first got the team because he just wanted me to score a goal and he was always passing me the ball and everything. So, he's a very unselfish player. With myself, I'd say Beardsley and Scott Sellers, and for us, for Andrew Coleman, it's probably a dream, because when you've got people like Peter Beers in the team, you know that you're always going to be given chances.
The team obviously used to train down at Maiden Castle as well. What was it like going down to train at Maiden Castle and having people come to watch you? We're not talking about one man and his dog here. We're talking about a couple of thousand people on a hot summer August day, coming down to watch the train go through the manoeuvres. And Kevin would often have you standing until later on signing autographs.
Yeah, he was brilliant at that. I mean, that was what we were talking about. That's where I think football clubs have lost a touch with their fans. So I'm not saying every football club. You look for like Leicester, for instance. That reminds me of Newcastle. When the owner comes on the pitch after the FA Cup and the players are bringing him down with a trophy, and you hear stories about how he's doing things in the community in Leicester. That's what Newcastle was about at them times. And we used to train at Durham and all that. And he used to tell us, we used to come out and train, and then the next week we see these barriers going up, and then you see, especially in the summer holidays, was where we got the most, and we get probably 2,000-3,000 people there, and to see that, but then also to understand that for them, it's the best thing in their life, because we understood about how passionate the fans were. Don't forget, Keegan took us to the social clubs. He took us to the fan forums. We would go, as we would go around pubs and talking to fans all the time. So again, our connection with them was so great to see them come to the training ground, and there was no security risk either. So, we was afterwards told to stand up after sign autographs. That was the least we could do.
Looking at football now, what's the best thing about football compared to your day, and what's the worst thing about football compared to your day, Ruel?
The best thing probably about football is the standard of quality that they can bring in, obviously with the money from Sky. And it's a double-edged sword, because also with the money coming in, then the wages are going up, and a lot of clubs are separated from what football is about. We've seen with this European thing that they were trying to do, and how the fans reacted to that. It's the fans football club. And I think that's when we're coming to this stage where clubs are trying to do their own Super League, that's the bad side of it. So it's a bit of both. So financial was great because it could bring in the quality players and improve our league to be what I still think is the best league in the world. But then on the other side, it's not. They're trying to take it away from the fans, which you can never do. You can never take football away from it, because without the fans, football is nothing.
You touched earlier in the interview about the racism factor, about Newcastle, and about how black players hadn't done well in the Northeast in general. Obviously, we have a big debate going on still in football, taking the knee, after the horrendous incident with George Floyd in America.
Yeah.
We've discussed it on the show quite openly on many occasions, and just wanted to know what your thoughts were, because you see a player like Wilfred Zaha now say, I'm not taking the knee anymore, because I think that it's just become a habit rather than what it would actually set out to achieve. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree with Wilfred Zaha to a certain extent. I mean, they always start these campaigns, and it starts off with a big drive and the kick it out things, with posters and banners and all that. Well, it doesn't get nowhere. At the end of the day, you're making a stance on it, but it starts to irritate people after a while, because people get the wrong idea what it's about. It's about really what it's about. It's about equality and giving diversity in places, giving people a chance. And also, the racism is part of it, but it's not the big part of it. But then people get the wrong idea about it, because I think because the timing of it was with that, with the Floyd killing also, I think people got the wrong idea, because it then started getting attached to Black Lives Matter. So the two getting associated, then everyone thought it was something to do with a minority thing, by giving black people a bigger place in society. Equality is about that as well, but at the same time, I think people misunderstood it. So for me now, doing these things, it just becomes a habit to do, and then it starts to die out, and then it just goes back to norm. So for me, it's not about that so much. I'd rather it be more about re-educating people, about educating people where it starts from schools and re-educating families, because everyone is in this kind of it's almost like they're fickle, because if you haven't seen it, you don't understand it. So if someone's trying to explain it to you, sometimes you don't want to listen to it. You think, well, you've got this, you've got that. And if you put yourself in them shoes for a little while, then you'll understand it. And I think the main thing about it is that if they're going to come out and do all these things, then the owners of clubs should be coming out and making the stance and saying things, because it's okay, a black person and another black person standing hand to hand and doing that. But if there's no white people backing you up, it's like any industry. If they're not standing side to side with you, and I mean, I think Alan was doing a bit with Wrighty a while back, and he didn't even understand it. Yeah. So it's just about slow re-education. But I don't feel that, you know, taking a knee is going to have the right reaction, because it allows fans then to voice their opinion in the wrong way, in a negative way, because they're the sort of fickle people who need educating. But I don't think by dropping the knee, by making that gesture, you're not going to educate them. They need to be talked to in education-wise and shown different ways of understanding what it's like.
Yeah, great stuff. Wise words. What are you up to now, Ruel? Fans always want to know what ex-players are doing.
I'm still running my boot camps. I run my fitness boot camp 3 times a week, called Ipswich 5-Star Boot Camp. I do it on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I've just now started to be in talks with our local our local Ipswich Council, because they want me now to work with people in the mental health department, and also to get them back outside and, you know, for mental health, getting fresh air, doing a bit of walking, so country walks and stuff like that. So I'm excited about that, because it helps with their obesity also. And I've also started doing my my sports conditioning stuff, which is, again, you know, sports agility stuff that I go around but I'm offering it more to the amateur teams who can't afford it. So I go around to football clubs and I, you know, give them advice about how to improve on their fitness and speed, agility and power. So it's really exciting at the moment. You know, I've got a lot on. And now, especially now that everything's, you know, been, I'd say, released a little bit, where people could get out a little bit. So especially the mental health side, you know, because we've all suffered with it. So to be able to give something back for free, you know, to help people get back to some sort of normality is a great buzz for me.
You never change, Ruel. You still look as if you could tear up that wing for Newcastle United on a Saturday. I've been
from here down to my shoulders, I'm all right. It's when you get lower down, the legs won't do it. I pull hamstrings, get out of bed now.
That's a beauty of a Zoom call, mate. That's a beauty of a Zoom call. We'll finish off, just a message for Newcastle fans, Ruel.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I could have nothing but love for the Newcastle fans, the way they treat me, the way that the fans, the love they give me, everyone around the football club. I'm still friends with some of the people who work around the football club. Yourself, I'm, you know, formed a good friendship with. So, you know, I'm always looking out for the results, and I'm always travelling up whenever I can to watch the game. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be in a good position next season. We'll either loosen up the purse strings, or, you know, the squad will be improved, and we can get the club where they want to be. I don't think the club are asking for too much. I don't think the fans are asking for too much. I don't think we're trying to win the league. We just want to see a team that we're proud of. And, you know, that's all we want as fan. I'm a fan now. So as fans, we just want to see and look and feel proud of what we see on the pitch. And hopefully next season, especially after learning how we just scraped through. I know it looked like we did scrape through, but, you know, the hardship we went through last season, hopefully next season we'll be celebrating a little bit more.
Well, hopefully next season as well, you can show me the delights of Norwich, and I'll get you back down the big market, because Norwich are back at the big time.
I just forgot about that. Norwich are coming up, so I've got an excuse to come up now. So yeah, hopefully we'll catch up with everyone. Good
stuff, mate. Listen, Ruel Fox, as always, absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on UFC Matters. Take care, mate. God bless you.
My pleasure. Take care. Bye. See you.